Okay, everyone, happy Sabbath. Okay, so the first song we're going to be doing is 189, and it's going to be called All That Thrills My Soul Is Jesus. Our next song will be 524. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus.
Just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, and to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, how sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust his cleansing blood, just in simple faith to plunge me 'neath the healing cloud. just from Jesus, simply taking life and rest and joy and peace. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I proved Him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more. I'm so glad I learned to trust Thee, precious Jesus, Savior, friend. And I know that Thou art with me, will be with me to the end. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I proved Him more and more. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more.
And our opening hymn will be number 50, Abide With Me. Can everyone please stand?
Abide with me, thus falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When others helpless fail and comforts flee, I draw the helpless soul, abide with me. Swift to its close, lambs, thou life's little day. Earth's joys grow dimmest, glories pass away. Change and decay in all around I see. Oh, Thou who changest not, abide with me. I need Thy presence every passing hour. What but Thy grace can fold the tempter's power? Who like Thyself, my God and stay can be? Through cloud and sunshine, Lord, abide with me. I fear no foe, with Thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight and tears no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where grave Thy victory? I triumph still if Thou abide with me.
You may be seated.
Thank you all. Good evening. Happy Sabbath, everyone. It's good to see you all here this evening. It's very good that I can be with you all here tonight alive. I'm very happy to be here. I was very honored to be asked to share with you all tonight, to stand here with you all together in the presence of God. But the message that I wanted to share with you all, I think is, even though it's pretty simple, is a message that I believe should bring the highest joy and give. Anyway, I'm just going to stop for just a second, just so you all know. I know all the dear people don't probably know this, but my name is actually spelled with a K. Nick there looks like it's nice without the E. It seems weak. Yeah, there we go. It's like Nick. It sounds soft. But anyway, as I was saying, the message that I would like to share with you all this evening, I think it is very simple, but it is something that I think can transform each one of our lives, not only show us our purpose that God has for us, but bring us the highest form of joy. So I'm really excited that we can all be here and talk about that this evening. But before we begin, I'd like to have a word of prayer. So bow your heads with me. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this day that we can be gathered here, this Sabbath in your sanctuary. And as you have promised to give us rest, I ask that we can accept the words that you'd like to share with us now. I ask that each one of us can be changed in a positive way to honor you and your kingdom. I ask that you can hide me behind your cross as well, and also that I will not cough or anything this evening. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Yes, I would ask that you all pray for me in practicing for speaking. I noticed that after the second time, I started coughing a little bit, but I brought some water, and I'll appreciate your all's prayers in this regard as well. So thank you very much. Yes. So I know we're talking about a message with the highest joy and God's purpose for our lives, but we're actually going to start out with I think what is probably a little bit more intimidating of a subject. And that is, I would like for all of us to think in the future ahead to the day, if the Lord does not come, when you will die. You do not know when this day is going to take place. You don't know when it's going to be. But I would like for you all to reflect. You don't have to necessarily raise your hands, but think to yourself, how many of you here this evening are ready for your time on earth to close, whether Christ was to come again or whether you were to die, right now? And if there is something that you would change, what would be that one thing? I was thinking about that a little bit this week, but I sincerely hope that this doesn't cause anyone to be afraid. But I do think that oftentimes we tend to dance around this subject of the seriousness that each of us have. We don't necessarily know how much time we have, and I think we kind of take that for granted, especially I know most of the people in this room are young people, and we kind of assume that we have generations, like decades ahead of us. And we take that for granted a bit, and a lot of times we tend to waste that time instead of using it for God's purpose because we think, we have enough. We have enough. Let me spend some of it on myself before I give the rest to God. A lot of people, too, are kind of afraid to think about the time that we die because a lot of people live in fear of death. And the fear of death changes how we live. I remember when I was young, Nathan and I, we would look forward. We didn't actually think that we were going to die. We all thought, we believed, and I still do believe, in Christ's imminent return, that his coming was right around the corner. And I still believe that Christ is indeed coming soon. And that many of us will probably not even see the grave, but we will be alive when Christ returns. But Nathan and I, we were thinking, especially in light of self-preservation, we weren't completely willing to become martyrs, during the end times. We were kind of hoping we'd be in the group that lived. So we wanted to be sure that we were ready for the time of trouble. And from our extensive research that we did from books like Flee the Captor, A Hiding Place, and Frank's Diary, we decided that we are going to go ahead and make preparations for the time of trouble. We went off and we built a fort in the woods, way out in the wilderness, about 450 feet from our house, where no one was ever going to look. We stored up some supplies because from there we were going to run into the state forest near our house and pretend to crash a car. Everyone would think, we were kind of goners, even though they wouldn't find anyone in the car. We didn't quite run through the forensics of all this, but then we were going to go off into the woods. We were going to, live in hiding, and then Christ was going to come. And to be honest, this fear and this self-preservation dominated more of my time than anything else, any other aspect for me preparing for Christ's return. And I think although not all of us are building forts out in the woods that we hope to hide in, a lot of us are preparing ourselves, even when we think in spiritual terms. Our spiritual lives, for many of us, is just a means of self-preservation so that we can avoid a time of judgment. The fact is that many of us spend our whole lives fearing our deaths. And humanity clings to a sense of self-preservation that erodes at our peace and also deteriorates our love for others because we're constantly thinking about ourselves. But if this is the Christian life, how can this be the joy that Christ has promised us? How can this be the peace and the purpose that he wants to send to each of our lives? And if we can live without fearing death, what is the key to doing so? So we've been learning this week about sharing our testimony especially, and so I think it's fitting that I tell you exactly why I've been kind of thinking a little bit more about this, and I've been thinking about kind of life and death and all this. Just about last week, I was here. I did not expect the fact that I was about to come very close to death. So I was sitting here over there in that end, watching the Depression Recovery concert. This is not a great picture, but it's the only picture I had. I think my brother or parents called me, and I was sending them a picture to show them why I couldn't answer their call. So this is Taylor playing the tin whistle and the orchestra, beautifully accompanying him. And after we finished, I decided that I was a bit hungry and that it would be a great idea to go obtain food. It's just after 6, and it's that time where it's a great time to eat. So got in the car. And this was not taken at the last week, but this is just a car for illustration purposes. That's what it looks like. It's beautiful. It was beautiful. So, spoilers. Anyway, so we set off on our journey. Very normal. The only feeling really I had was hunger. I wasn't feeling a sense of, oncoming dread. And I was going down the interstate. I was talking to Bailey, and we were laughing about something. I think I was trying to convince her that we were actually going to Sacramento instead of Auburn, which would have been ridiculous. But we were going under the overpass at Bell Road. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw some sparks or something. And less than a second later, there was a car in the air just filling my windscreen, just boom. And we hit it, going interstate speeds. It just came like it had fallen out of the sky. We hit it going about 70 miles an hour. There was a loud noise, kind of like an explosion, almost, and a tremendous amount of force when the airbags kind of hit. But I wasn't really cognizant of a lot of things that were happening until we were beside the road now. I was still in the car. I couldn't really see because the airbags had covered all the windows, and it's kind of dark because there's no lights, and it's smoky or carbon dioxide. I wasn't really thinking about that now. At this moment, I was thinking, kind of fire. And I was a little bit stunned, and there was an intense, ringing in my ears. I couldn't hear anything else. And I looked over, and Bailey was a bit slumped over the seatbelt, and I was going to try to say something, but I realized that there was no breath in my lungs. The air was completely gone. And I tried to kind of gain it after a while and, still kind of get my breath back and talk. And then I said, are you okay? But I actually couldn't hear myself because I could only hear the ringing in my ears. And she was just staring at the dash, but her eyes were open, so I knew she was conscious. And I looked around, and then I started to hear horns, kind of faintly. People were honking their horns. So I knew I was starting to gain my hearing back. It sounded like they were far away, but they're actually right around the car. And I was wondering if we were still in the middle of the road or if we were on the side now. I wasn't exactly sure where we were at. And so eventually, as my hearing was coming back, I said again, to Bailey, "Are you okay?" And I think she said yes. I can't. You all know, if you know me, that my hearing's not actually great to begin with. So with the whole ringing in my ears, it kind of threw another wrench into my hearing, and so I was really not cognizant of what she was saying. I think she asked if I was okay too, but we got out of the car. It was a little bit hard to open the door because obviously it had been kind of smashed in. There's our car, and I had a little bit of a hard time opening the door, but I was able to kind of force it open and call 911 and turn around and kind of look at my car. As soon as I stepped out, I was a little bit, kind of maybe a little bit dizzy, but I felt fine. Like I was, able to walk out. Billy was able to get out of the car as well, and someone else had already called 911. There's cars lined up right behind us. There had been a great space of cars, behind and in front of us, and so we called 911. They said they already had, some people on the way, and I looked over at the other person's car, and there's probably about 10 or so people around their car door trying to force it open. I could see that her eyes were open, but she was completely out of it. And there's no way to get her over the seat to the other door. And of course, the doors lock, when the car's driving. So there's really no way to get her out. So they're still trying to get her out of the car. And I looked around. The police hadn't come yet. A man came up to me and started kind of explaining a bit of what had happened. I think he had talked to some of the passengers of the other car. And apparently, this lady who had been driving the other car had been going down Bell Road. For those of you who know, I'm sure everyone here kind of knows, Bell Road runs perpendicularly to the interstate, and there's an overpass coming down. She had been coming down this when she had gone into an epileptic seizure. And she had taken her hands off the wheel and slumped onto the gas pedal, kept going faster and veered off to the right of the overpass and gone down on the hill perpendicular to the interstate and come out right in front of our car. And the police arrived, and they, kind of started, helping us out. They took us across the road, and here's another picture of the side. You can see the front kind of the car got destroyed. It is definitely gone. But we talked with a couple of the paramedics, and then I spoke with a fireman right as we were about to get into Marcus's car. He was good enough to take us back, parked across from where we were. And so I was talking to a fireman, and the fireman noted to us that it was very fortunate what had happened, even though, it was bad that we were in a wreck. Because if her car had come just a bit later, it would have hit the side of our door where Bailey was sitting. If we had gone there a little bit sooner, it would also have collided in the same direction, and we wouldn't have had the trunk space. Or if we had been going just a little faster, if our car had been a little bit smaller, or if it had been older and stiffer. A lot of things could have happened, in which case more than just our car could have been ruined. So he was just kind of pointing that out, and I was fine. We were able to walk away with nothing but just kind of like whiplash and bruises, and everything was very minor. But it got me to thinking a little bit. First of all, I was very thankful. I spent some time, not a lot of time, but some time reflecting. The next day, SA had planned a ski day. How many of you got to go? Yeah, so that's good. I hope you all enjoyed that. I was with you all in spirit, but after kind of the shock and adrenaline wore off, I found myself to be extremely sore, especially in my back and kind of neck, and some in my chest as well. But I took some time to reflect about what had happened, and kind of what it meant for my life as well, because I always pictured if I got in a car accident or if something happened with my life, that I would have at least some control in it. That I could kind of see a car coming, I could swerve or slow down or even if it was going to be a crash, I would have some say in how it happened. But I realized that cars can literally fall out of the sky. You don't necessarily know what is going to happen, 2 seconds from now. Reflect on that as I drink some water. I'm not sick. I'm just, I was sick a while ago, and now when I speak, sometimes my voice gets a bit raspy. So I was thinking the next day about how really all of this is not in my control. It's really up to the Lord. What happens with my life? It's not in my hands. As much as I'd like to have some say and some control in it, it's not really mine to have a say or to control in. Every heartbeat is a gift. Psalm 37, 7 and 8 says, "The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him." And so first of all, I just thought to myself of how grateful I was that God had spared Bailey's life, the other passengers, the other driver, my own life as well, that no one else had gotten involved. And how good he was when you truly realize that, you taste and you see, that in itself is a gift. But I was also thinking about what I could learn, from this experience, what I would have wanted to change differently if that had been my last day. Psalm 34:10 says, "The young lions lack and suffer hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing." So, I'd really like to emphasize that point about how those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. The protection of the Lord causes us to want to seek him. And I was specifically thinking about this and what way I would like to seek him more in my life. What was the one area in which I would like to change the most? And I know that there's so much as we're talking about, which moment's going to be our last and preparing yourself for, the close of your life here on earth. There's a lot that takes place. But the one thing that I wanted to change the most is one thing that I think is often forgotten in preparation for, the close of our life. And that is this. Matthew 16:24 and 25 says this. "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it.'" And this is kind of a paradox as we're thinking about, how should I be preparing for my death? What do I want to do with my life while I'm here on this earth? And if we think about it, Christ has actually called us to lay down our life. And if we seek our own life, if we're constantly seeking our own self-preservation, and if our only care is, for our own existence, then that is actually a guarantee that we will lose our life. And it's actually in laying that down and giving that up that we will find our life. One thing that Christ has given us a gift to is that we can die, because a dead man cannot be killed. A dead man can't lose his life because he doesn't have one, because he is dead. And if we are dead, then we cannot lose our life. But everyone will lose their life unless they have died. Luke actually mentions that we take up our cross daily and follow him. Matthew 16 goes on to say, "For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory with his fathers, of his fathers with his angels, and then he will reward each one according to his works." I was thinking about this and thinking about how strange it was that in order to, kind of find our life, we actually need to lose it. And I was reminded of this verse in 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 and 17. "By this we know love, because he laid down his life for us. And we ought also to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him?" I think this has a lot to do with the verse in Matthew. And I was thinking about this. This was the one thing that I would want to change above everything else that I've done in my life. is what have I done for other people? What have I done for Christ's mission? And I was thinking about that, and I was reminded of Matthew 25, when everyone kind of stands up there. You know, would I be on the right or would I be on the left? How many times have I ignored someone who was in need? How many times have I passed Christ by while he's been in prison, or been sick, or been hungry, or been naked without clothes? Matthew 25, 34 and 35 says, "Then the king will say to those on the right hand, 'Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in.' Then the righteous will answer him, saying, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? And when did we give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in?' And the king will answer and say to them, 'Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it for one of the least of my brethren, you did it to me.'" And thinking about how much Christ has done for me and what I have done for Christ, I realize what a gap, what a disparity there is. How much of my life have I committed to the mission of Christ for the saving of other people? And I think this also gives us the joy and the peace that I was describing earlier. You know, if we want to live without fear of dying, then why try to preserve our life? Why try to fight for something that you don't have possession over in the first place? Why try to control something that's uncontrollable? You know, instead, Christ offers us a path knowing that this is the only path for us to have both peace and purpose. I know it's a lot of P's. But I think that really Christ gave us this mission not just for his own utility of saving more people, but also for ourselves. He could have sent angels down to do his work for us. He could get rocks and trees to talk on our behalf. Why do we need to reach people? It's not for him. It's not even for those other people. It's also for ourselves. You know, in kind of preparing for the judgment, a lot of us are very worried about how we're growing and how we're progressing. And in a form, you know, we do want to make sure that we have a close connection with Christ. But if the only goal of our relationship with Christ is for our own salvation, how is that love? And Ellen White says this, "In place of growing anxious with the thought that you are not growing in grace, just do every duty that presents itself. Carry the burden of souls on your heart, and by every conceivable means seek to save the lost. Be kind, be courteous, be pitiful. Speak in humility of the blessed hope. Talk of the love of Jesus. Tell of his goodness, his mercy, and his righteousness, and cease to worry as to whether or not you are growing. Plants do not grow through any conscious effort. The plant is not in continual worriment about its growth. It just grows under the supervision of God." I think that this semester we have a great opportunity to reach people not just on this campus but off this campus, whether they be our close friends or whether they be strangers that we meet on the streets. You know, this is an opportunity not just for those people but also for ourselves to gain peace and purpose. And if we're really wanting to take a serious look at our life, then I think one of the foremost questions that we often ignore is how much we are spending of that for Christ's work. Your life is out of your control, so I don't think there's any reason to fight for it. Just surrender it. And this was what I was really thinking. This was the one thing that I would really want to change if that moment had been my last. And it reminds me a bit of a quote by Jim Elliot. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. He was a missionary to South America, and he was actually killed trying to witness and share the gospel. He said this, "He is no fool to give what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." As the choristers are coming up for the closing song, I'd like for each of us to just think about this evening what we would like to do for the cause of Christ. If this moment was to be our last, how much of it would we like to spend going forward, not for ourselves, but for our brothers? And how many of you would like to lay down your life so that you can find it?
So our closing song is going to be Let Your Heart Be Broken, 575. May the congregation please stand.
Let your heart be broken for a world in need. Feed the mouth that calls them to the wounds that bleed. Give the cup of water and the loaf of bread. Be the hands of Jesus serving in His stead. Here on earth applying principles of love, visible expression, God's rules of love, living illustration of the living Word, to the minds of all who've never seen or heard. Blessed to meet a blessing, privileged to care, challenged by the need of parent everywhere. Mankind is wanting, fill the vacant place. Be the means through which the Lord reveals His grace. And to your believing deeds that prove it true, knowing Christ as Savior, make Him Master too. Follow in His footsteps, go where He has trod. In the world's great trouble, risk yourself for God. Let your heart be tender and your vision clear. See mankind as God sees, serve Him far and near. Let your heart be broken by a brother's pain. Share your rich resources, give and give again. Father in heaven, we thank you so much that you have given us a work that can fill us with peace and purpose, that we don't have to fear death, knowing that our life can be in your hands. And I ask that you can help us to dedicate ourselves to you, that we will regret no moment that we spend because it will be spent in your service and in light of what you have done for us. And I ask that this can be each of our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.